No one warned us that healing would make our lives stop working, that the moment you'd start listening to your body, questioning your beliefs, and asking for more, that relationships would begin to feel off, that the work that you called in your whole life that used to make sense would begin to drain you, and the life you built just to survive would suddenly feel impossible to continue. If you're exhausted, overwhelmed, or quietly wondering what's happening to me, it's not a breakdown. You might just be having a spiritual awakening.
Welcome to Peace Out Witches, where divine feminine magic meets your sacred business mastermind. We're your hosts, Jamie and Stacy, here to help you ditch the pressure, reclaim your peace, and step into your natural flow in life, leadership, and business. This is a space where healing meets strategy, ritual meets life, and you don't have to choose between being spiritual and successful. Today, we're answering one of the most common questions we hear from women. How do you know if you're having a spiritual awakening?
What was your first sign, Jamie?
That's a really good question. I had many spiritual awakenings, and they all came in different ways. The first one that I can remember is being in my church with my mother and having the priest, at the time we're Catholic, taking us out of the church in front of everyone, walking us out and telling her she was no longer welcome to come back. And I was pissed. I was so mad. My mom said I would flip off the priest whenever I saw him. I would call him names. I was angry. And she said I said things she didn't even know I had the words for at that time because I was 6. I was 6. And so for me, that kind of sent me on a tailspin of like, what are we doing here? Why are we here? I've always had those questions, what is the truth? So that was my first. But then later, it was knowing that there was something more and being curious. And I had to learn to be the black sheep or the different person or I like to call it the fringe dweller, who was always on the fringe of society's what was accepted and what was not. And when I understood that that was just who I was because I was on a spiritual journey looking for the answers that I needed, then it clicked. And then I was able to, get on my path and just start, learning and understanding who I was. But it wasn't easy being on the fringe because when you're on the fringe, you're different, you're weird, you're ostracized, you're things that you believe are not the truth. And but my inner guidance system wouldn't let me deviate, not conform. I wouldn't conform to it. And now I feel like the world's kind of caught up to where I was on that journey. So it's easier, but it's still, it's still jarring. It was a very life-changing experience, but it happened over time for me.
Mhm. I had these moments in time where I would be like in this life that I had created, and I would look around and I would realize, uh oh, like this isn't quite working the way that I thought it was going to work out, or this isn't working for me any longer. And I would begin to like search for things. And I think for me, there was a piece of almost like running away in my spiritual awakening because there was a lot of things that felt like off limits. Like you said, you were Catholic and you were pretty young when you had that happen. I was about 8 or 9, and we were in a Christian church when the pastor wouldn't do a ceremony for my mom's husband who had just died, um, because he believed what he believed, and he didn't believe they were living in the way that he thought that they should live. And it was a very prominent person in that state and in that place. And I remember experiencing that, but still seeking for what I knew felt good. And then coming along the journey and experiencing the Holy Spirit and really digging deep into the Bible and really spending a lot of time learning that, not just as a child, but as an adult. And then again, really opening myself up to experiencing other things, and I had already, like, experimented with all kinds of different religions, so that wasn't really necessarily as different as it was to just embrace more of the spiritual, divine, feminine, magic, metaphysical piece of where my spiritual awakening was going, and I really went on that journey because I felt frustrated about the education that I was receiving in that way. You know, like I already had spent a long time being well versed in the spiritual books that are available and still love to do that, still enjoy going down those different rabbit holes. But I really felt like I wanted guidance and I wanted support to understand what was happening to me that I was seeing, hearing, experiencing, and also on the fringe of, right? Like I was already on the fringe of most things when it came to my personal beliefs of things, right? And so finding friends was already hard in that way. But then to also spiritually question things, like you can't really spiritually question what this Bible says, or, you know, that the earth might be flat or not flat because the Bible says that the earth is flat. So then you can't question this disillusionment that we grow up with, and we grow up with a lot of propaganda and a lot of stories. And so it's hard, yeah, it's hard to begin to understand that what part of that spiritual awakening is seeing clearly what you can no longer not see.
That's true. That's a big part of it, is that becoming awakened to different truths that you once thought were false. And you cannot undo those truths because they are absolutely true in your body and your mind and spirit, and you know they are. And then you just are like, now what? What do I do with
Mhm.
all this? Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I mean, I think there is a lot of truth to the aspect of the divine feminine needing embodiment. And I believe that that is why a lot of times for women, a spiritual awakening can first happen in the body.
Absolutely. And even men too. But yes, absolutely. It's like it takes a diagnosis sometimes to bring people to Jesus or to whatever faith they choose, because they're out of control. They have no control over what's happening in their life at that point because of their body.
Yeah, and
And
the human
the body
experience is
just,
not embody.
well, yes, we've been taught, when you're having an issue, you know, go to the doctor. And some people go to Google and they're trying to diagnose it. And that's okay. Go to a doctor if you have an issue. Go see a doctor. But sometimes it's something subtle that isn't doctor worthy, but it comes up a lot. So for instance, for me, I would get rashes and I'd have shortness of breath and I'd feel dizzy. And that was in my teens, because I was living that life of confusion. I was everywhere with my spirituality. I was in seeking mode, but I was also like, I need to choose, like, because we were told you need to have one, you can't have them all, which I think you can have lots of different beliefs and lots of different practices. Um, and we went to doctors, this and that, and really it was stored trauma for me. It was trauma. It was not being able to express myself emotionally because I was told not to. And so I'd stuff it away. So then the body is just like, no, there's an answer here outside of all the things you've tried. And that's part of was my spiritual journey, because I went into this healing path, learning all the healing modalities that I experienced that worked, and then learning them because they worked. And wow, look at the relief I have. So I know others will have this too. If I can help others, I will. So, and your nervous system. I mean, your nervous system is your guidance system in your body. You know, how are you feeling today? Like right now, just check in with yourself. Are you tense? Are you feeling fight or flight in your body? That tenseness, that not being able to relax, maybe you're shaking a leg or you can't sit still or you can't focus. Um, these are pieces of that spiritual awakening that something needs to shift.
Hmm. And I think a lot of people find it on the journey of big life things, like a lot of times you will be trying to get healthier in one way or the other, or maybe you are on the journey of trying to regulate hormones and things like that.
Mhm.
And you'll begin to just understand that the body is trying to say something to you. And sometimes we're much
Mhm.
younger, like Jamie, you were much younger when you went on this journey.
Mhm.
And sometimes we're much older. I was younger too. I was like 18 to 20 and diagnosed with degenerative disc disease and,
Mhm.
told all these things that was going to happen to me. And I just began to understand how to process first in movement. For me, it was somatic movement first, right? I didn't find breath work
Mhm.
till later. I found movement first. Um,
Mhm.
and I knew talk therapy wasn't going to cut it because, like, I had
Hang on a second. Lift your microphone, push it back down. It's fuzzy. Try again.
already done talk therapy, and knew that wasn't going to be working. And so I found, movement, and movement allowed me to process and not feel so much. It allowed me to, process through the things in my body. I think also it's when we begin to question things. And
Mhm.
when we begin to question things, we also maybe start to understand where we may have held emotions or traumas that we didn't deal with. So I'll give like an example, like where we hold anger or where we hold sadness, where we hold pain, where we hold suffering. A lot of these are part of our experience in the maiden or in the prince, that just are needing to be healed and listened to. And we're taught really to just push those things into our body. And that's part of why. Not just in our path to priestess, but in general in our current world, we're seeing a lot of these modalities come out and be helpful for aligning the mind, the body, and the spirit. Breath work, movement, Reiki, um,
Release. Mhm.
massage, energetic movement. Um, I'm I'm loving seeing ecstatic dancing,
I love ecstatic dancing. Yes.
So there's definitely a lot of things that I think you can journey through that will allow you to begin to um, embody what the body is saying to you. And then spiritually, the most important thing is to listen to your inner guidance system. And that inner guidance system is going to have a lot more to say to you than any outer person is going to have.
Mm.
Priest, pastor, guide, or coach, counselor.
I mean, and we're so trained to not go inward. We're so trained to find and seek answers outside of ourselves. And yes, that's good. Do that. Because sometimes the people you need to put yourself around are going to help you guide you to your inner guidance system. If they're good, they're going to turn you inward. They're going to say, I can do this to help maybe energetically remove some of the emotional baggage you may be feeling that's keeping you blocked. But after we're done with that, then what? You're going to go inward and you're going to listen. You're going to, if you don't know how to do that, if you've never listened to your inner guidance system, having someone help you clear kind of like the emotional baggage that you might be feeling in your field, or in your body physically. So somatic breath work or movement and doing processing some of that will give you the opportunity to really feel and hear and sense what that inner guidance system is for you. And it's as simple as, even if you don't have the money or time or energy to go get any kind of work done to get there, it's as simple as taking a breath into your heart space taking a breath into your, right below your rib cage and right into your womb space and just calming yourself. And then ask yourself a series of yes, no questions you know the answer to. And where do you feel that in your body? What does a yes feel like? What does a no feel like? These are maybe, if you don't feel anything to the question, it's a maybe. So just really simple practice to find out how your body, mind, and spirit speaks to you.
Yeah. So I just want to repeat that because I think that that's a really good practice that um, we miss sometimes. And it's a really good practice to teach your young children
Mm,
because young children will naturally listen to their intuition. That's why
mhm,
sometimes when you ask them things, they'll say, because I just want to.
mm,
So, breathing in as deeply as you can, just allowing that breath to really be heard in your body, and
mm.
then putting it where you can on your heart, a little bit above your
Being
belly button
intentional with it. Yeah. Having
and
intention to where the breath goes.
under your belly button, and then asking, like, do I need to drink this water?
Hmm.
But first asking questions that, is my name Stacy?
Exactly.
Um,
I, I I live in blah 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 or whatever it is. I have a red car. Easy questions to determine, and then ask some no questions so you know the difference.
Yeah, yeah. I often will tell people too to stand up when they're doing this,
Hmm.
so you can kind of feel the actual sway of your body. Your body does sway, yes or no. And you can begin to do this with all kinds of different things. It really is a nice, sweet, sacred way to call in your own intuition and your inner magic. Um, so yeah,
And I want to go back a little, 2 steps, because what is a spiritual awakening made? What would it look like for other people? We kind of explained how ours had emerged. It could look like burnout. It can look like disillusionment, like structures around you are falling and crumbling. That truth piece, like once you know the truth, it's hard to go back to what you used to believe. Emotional overwhelm, grief, just feeling grief, but not having any consciousness or reason for it. Just remember, nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong. This piece that you're experiencing is important to the next step. So experience it, like really fully be in the moment with it. It's sometimes we call it the void. Sometimes it can be painful and it's full, it's not the void, but sometimes it feels like the void, like blah. I don't know how else to explain it, like a blah feeling, like things that brought you joy before do not any longer. And things that upset you may not upset you any longer. You just feel blah about it all. And it's kind of like this time of reset. It's your reset before the actual shift. And the
I think
reset's important.
you can also experience this when you're getting frustrated about something or you're no longer liking what you're doing, like you're dreading it, you've got this dread about it. And it can be about motherhood. I mean, it's okay. We can talk about the fact that parenthood can feel dreadful sometimes, and parenthood can feel like you're in survival sometimes. And sometimes it can be in your career, and sometimes it can be everywhere. You can feel like, I need to just get up and release everything. I'm going to move and pack my stuff, and I don't know why. I'm just going to do it. It can also feel really jarring if you are leaving a religion. And I think a lot of times in a spiritual awakening, there is this hermitness that comes, this coming back. Um, it doesn't mean that you won't go back there. It just means that you need some time to be able to surround yourself with what is truth. And no matter what, that your body and your existence around you. So when you pull closer together to you, and even to a guide or a mentor that can help you during a spiritual awakening, it can really support you in adjusting.
Hmm. Yeah, because there is that adjustment period. There is that piece that. when you do have an awakening of any sort, even just becoming a mother for the first time, second, it doesn't matter. There's that adjustment period, and it's in nature. We have to adjust to the new seasons. We have to adjust to, things being given to us and taken away. Like, there's a lot of things in life. This is the absolute truth of this 3D matrix, is that we have to constantly recalibrate because things change a lot. Um, but it's allowing and surrendering at that point. And I just want to pause here for just a minute. And if this episode is actually something you resonate with, or you're thinking, gosh, I'm glad they're talking about this because I've been feeling this, just make sure you're subscribed to Peace Out Witches, because this is a multi podcast topic that we'll touch upon throughout the year, and definitely give you more ideas, tips, tricks to move through your awakening, and also to grow your gifts, because during the awakening, the gifts come online too. And so, it's good to have support, and it's good to have women who are just here chatting with you because they've been there and they've been through it and they're still going through it. I mean, you and I are always growing, learning, and evolving. We know that never ends.
Yeah,
That never
yeah.
ends.
Well,
Hmm.
and very much in a spiritual awakening, it can feel like that. Like it's just that aspect of understanding that you're observing in your own life that there's certain things that aren't working for you. And you're no longer willing to just suffer through it. What are some of your favorite ways to kind of help yourself during the void or during this aspect of agitation or grief, anger, rage, sadness, some of the things that kind of can come up during this first part of really what I call the unrooting, this aspect of like, okay, this life is no longer working for me. And I'm either going to unroot it myself or it's going to be unrooted for me. And things are going to start to fall apart or I'm going to leave things. What are some things that we can do during that period um, that often or will help us process what's really going on? Because a part of what's going on is the grief and the loneliness and the anger and the frustration and the understanding of like ick. And there's the void in between. And then there's this like new existence of understanding because you have elevated, risen, awoken, given opportunity to step into a new you.
I like to see it as the old way will fall away, but it doesn't mean everything in your life will collapse. Doesn't mean your relationship will end, your job will change. It means that the new you that you're coming into will be able to observe and become something more within it, and even offer more to it than you did before. So there's that piece of the spiritual awakening, that the growth and the change can illuminate things in your life that don't work, that you can, tidy up or change or get rid of, or however you decide to do it. So for me, because this is why I'm saying this, for me, I observe and I'm good at like putting my thoughts on paper in lists form. What's working, what's not, what can I let go of because it isn't doing what it needs to do, or that behavior, that pattern, that mentality, which one shines the brightest, that is not working for me. And usually it always comes to me. It's not somebody else. It's never like, oh, my husband, or um, sometimes it's this place that I'm living in is no longer supportive for me. I've had that experience. And it's not a spiritual awakening as much as it is part of the spiritual awakening. You know what I mean? So what I do is I make lists, what works, what doesn't. I like to pray. I spend more time in prayer. I spend deeper time in ritual, which would mean sacred space, putting myself in a sacred space in my house, or if I'm outside, making one and setting myself in there and quieting my mind. Um, surrendering to whatever emotions I have because they're fleeting. They don't last forever. And it's easier to just embrace the grief and then grieve, and then move on. It really is. Don't try to stop it. If you're at work or whatever and you can't, and the wave of grief comes or all the things come, that's when writing them out is a way to process it. So you're still giving a voice to whatever you're feeling without, hindering what you need to get done. Um, and making small changes. So if changes are overwhelming, what's one thing you can do today? Whether it's meditate, pray, sleep. Sometimes surrendering to our fatigue. Sometimes it's surrendering to quieting our mind because it's feeding us too much. It's giving us too much to think about, and we need just quiet time. Sometimes it means escaping. I mean, there's nothing wrong. There's no shame and guilt in finding escape when everything feels way too overwhelming. I mean, I'm not talking about escape that's going to hinder you in any way. I mean, watch a show or a movie that's always made you feel good, or read a new book, or, whatever it is for you, music, dance, whatever. But definitely body work. Body work is something I always do, breath work. And even in this moment, I'm having not a spiritual awakening, but more of a coming to realize where I am in my timeline on the 3D matrix in age. And I'm going, okay, yeah, some things are just going to have to change, whether I like it or not, whether, it's just evolving into a new human. And so, in order for me to do that, I take away something that doesn't work, and then, but I immediately put something that works in. If I'm too tired to activate that thing that I need to do that day to fill that void, then I just allow the void for a day or two. And then when I have the energy, I go towards it. Does that make sense?
I think that, the important part is that, a spiritual awakening is something that happens. We believe in metaphysics in a 3D way, and what I mean is it's three form, when we talk about the physical body, and then we talk about the spiritual body, and then we talk about, the way that we process that. And so, it really is that aspect of how we are processing the things around us. And, if you are in the aspect of beginning a spiritual awakening, you understand that things are no longer working for you. You're looking for guidance and mentorship. You're really wanting to spend time doing something different and learning about sacred ways to call yourself out of survival and call in more of a life that is led in spirit. um, something like Priestess Path would be a really good option, because it really is an opportunity to experience all the different healing modalities. And I think a lot of times what we have to embrace during a spiritual awakening is it is all three of our parts saying, hold up, wait a minute. This isn't right, and we need to do something about it. But also, hey, I don't think we really processed all that stuff back there. I think you thought you processed it back there, but you actually didn't. And so you need to give moment to it. And when Jamie talks about being able to just grieve because you're grieving, if that sounds really like crazy, that's where mentorship, guidance, things like Priestess Path really come in, because it's going to teach you. For example, in Priestess Path, we do 22 sessions that you have no other opportunity but to focus on yourself, to give yourself a certain amount of time during a certain period to breathe or to move or to learn about your maiden, and why she doesn't feel like she's enough, or why she carries that she is in living in lack, or maybe the mother who feels like she's not enough or she's always in survival, and she doesn't have a sacred no maybe, and she needs to learn her sacred no, and the crone is like, hey, that's a sacred no. There's these aspects of the psyche And there's
Yes.
these aspects that sometimes need it because we need someone on the outside to help us kind of look back in. And one of the ways that we do that at Peace Not Perfection Academy is through ritual, through ceremony, through breath work, through
Hmm.
movement. And we even extend that to Professional Priestess Academy, where we train women to be able to go out and do breath work for others and do
Hmm.
movement for others and do Reiki for others and do all of these different healing modalities for others. So there's this part of the spiritual awakening that can feel like you're seeking, can feel like you're rising, can feel like you're lonely, and it can feel like you are wanting others on the path. And that's when it's a really good opportunity to find a guide and a mentor that feels good to you and feels like they can help you open your horizon, but also clear out some of that baggage and some of that stuff that we carry with us. Um, and then the other part of a spiritual awakening that I want to talk about is I think the part that people are almost the most scared of. And one that's I'm leaving my religion, so I'm going to go to hell. And the second one is I'm going to see scary things and experience scary things, and or I am seeing scary things and experiencing scary things, and I don't know what they are. I don't know what I'm seeing. I don't know what I'm hearing. Maybe even you're noticing that your kids are seeing, hearing, or experiencing things, and you don't know how to help them on their own spiritual awakening because our kids are really coming in at a very different level than we were.
True.
So let's talk a little bit about what that can feel like or look like.
That that part pushes people back into old ways, keeps them stuck, and it's there's a system in place for that, to do just that, to keep you stuck, to keep you away from what internally you know is right for you, or what your gifts are. And remember, the scary things are interpretation, right? So the more knowledge you have about what you're experiencing, the less scary it can be, right? Because now we know, oh, you know, this is me having an attachment of some sort that does, an energy that's in my field, and it's not me. How do you know what's you and what's not? Most of the thoughts that we have are not even ours. 97% are coming from the beings around us, people, other people, or whatever, energies. So it can be scary, but knowledge is power. And it really is. And for me on my journey, I've had experiences my whole life. So I had no mentorship as a child as to why I was having the experiences was having. And they were terrifying, but eventually I sought out information and people to help me on my path so that I can learn more about what I'm dealing with. And then I learned, oh, this isn't scary at all. This is just blah, 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 whatever it is. Um, so mentorship was a huge part of my spiritual awakening. And I didn't always stick to just one mentor, because some people have this to offer and some people have that to offer. And I needed both, or I needed all. I didn't need just one. And sometimes I would come to a mentor and I'd be like, not for me. Like I knew right away. I just had that knowing. So I think it's very important to be willing to be curious about who you are and what you're experiencing. And when you come from a curious point of view, your fear kind of falls away. You can still be scared. I mean, you can still have that. It's not terror. It's more like curiosity, and it's the other side of excitement, that anxiety, or like a little bit of cautious curiosity, I guess I would like to call it. But then you're able to explore who you are in a way that feels safe to you and doesn't keep you trapped, because the old wasn't working. So why go back? Why?
I think finding like-minded people really helps a lot. Helps you process through and kind of determine what you want to keep with you and what you want to let go of. I also think it helps you understand that you're not crazy. Like if you are gifted with seeing things, hearing things, we all experience these gifts in a different way. So if you are gifted with some of those things and you don't have people to talk about, finding a guide, mentor, someone that you can experience sisterhood or brotherhood with is important on this journey because it helps you understand that you're not going crazy. You're really just rising into a new earth. You are rising into a new body, a new existence, a new spirit. Um, I personally was very scared of a lot of things, partly because of a religion that told me that I should be scared of those things, that they weren't safe or good to use. And then, secondly, because very much a lot of people around me who have experienced their gifts in a visual way. And I am just not gifted in that way. Like I experience it in a very different way than visual. And so it took me a while to understand how I experienced those things versus how they experienced them. But I think that there was a little bit of fear there. And I think that partly that was because I come from a Christian religion that really doesn't talk about the fearful things. Like, we don't talk about the fact that, there could still be Nephilim on earth and that not angels are always good and that there is, really this aspect of shadow and light and playing with certain things can be dangerous. Like, we don't really talk about that part in religion. We kind of gloss over it in a certain way, but we don't really um, equipped our people properly on how to use some of these gifts that we have available to us. And so I think that's where the metaphysical world gets it right. And where it really does help you not be so afraid of the things that you might be seeing or experiencing or hearing or even what I would call peripheраting on, which means that you are maybe like spending too much time on. Having a coach, a guide, mentor, someone to support you through some of these things can be important because they can help you process through some of that and they can really help you process through the fear. They can also help slow you down a little bit if needed, because sometimes we are on a spiritual awakening and we are grasping at so many things so quickly that it can get really overwhelming and it can feel more than lonely. It can feel really depressing and sad and overwhelming and like you're just going to die. And so that is more on the end of almost like a dark night of the soul, right? This aspect of just everything. So when we have sisterhood, like-minded people, ritual, sacred ceremony around us, that's how we begin to dissipate some of maybe the anger, fear, frustration, sadness that we carry with us that we don't want to process because it's scary or because if I'm depressed for 2 days, I might be depressed for the rest of my life. Or if I'm angry for 5 minutes, I might be angry for the rest of my life. Given permission to like stand outside and scream and stomp and yell and get mad. Um, some of us were never given that permission. It can feel really scary to do that. So when we find community guides, sisters, things like that, they often will give us permission. Not that we need the permission, but they sometimes give our psyche the permission. Yeah, it becomes a safe space.
That's so missing in the metaphysical world right now, is a very safe place to be free to be yourself completely in all the good and all the bad in that way and process healthily. Like, having rage is normal, but acting out in rage is not. But going out and processing the rage by primal screaming, or throwing axes at an axe throwing place, or just ways to process it in a way that dissipates it so that it doesn't have control over your life anymore. And then if it comes back again, or you notice the pattern again, you have a healthy way to heal it, and you're surrounded by people. What I love about sisterhood is that you're surrounded with other women who either have been there, done that, and can support you, or that are right there with you
Hmm.
in that journey
Yeah.
and doing the same. Yeah.
Well, and a spiritual awakening can feel kind of lonely. I mean, it is normal during a spiritual awakening to leave your religion, to leave marriages, to leave relationships, to leave businesses, to leave jobs, careers, all kinds of things. It doesn't mean you won't pick those things up either, again, but it is normal to kind of let it all fall apart to come online. But I really think of a spiritual awakening and for all people as a rising, a stepping into, an understanding of. Um, no longer being separate. And I think that we're doing a really good job right now raising our children to understand that they aren't separate and they really are much more elevated in their spiritual awakening than we are because of that. Um, there hasn't been so much pushing down and acting like we don't have it. And when you are willing to say yes, you open yourself up to your gifts, and your gifts are going to get stronger and stronger, and you're going to be able to use them quicker and quicker and process faster and faster. And one of the things that I really love about what we do at Peace Not Perfection Academy with either Professional Priestess Path or Temple of Peace is that we really give an opportunity to experience all those things in a safe place. And, Temple of Peace is really about calling in that ceremony and just the sacredness of life, like learning about the wheel of the year and learning about the sacredness and how to call in these seasons and these rhythms in our life, just in a very natural way to human existence. And then, Path to Priestess is really an opportunity to experience all the different healing modalities. You get 13 months of experiencing each of those healing modalities and really seeing what it is that you want to go further in and what it is that your gifts are being called to and where you excel and what brings you joy. And then professional priestess is really about taking all of those modalities and learning how to then give them guidance to others and mentorship to others and coach to others in either your own sacred business or your sacred life. And that is really by taking all of those modalities that you've experienced, all that healing that you've experienced, and being able to then bring it and push it forward into the world and support others with it. And so if you feel like you're falling apart or you're lonely or you're in this really just rawness of the dark night of the soul or a spiritual awakening, know that number one, you're not alone. Number two, this is a normal part of what happens when we are rising in a spiritual way. There's certain things in our world that just no longer work for us and we have to say, nah, can't do that. I'm done with that. um, there is a higher power of some kind of existence, and if you can determine what that might be for you, that can really help you have something to call on to. and and then beyond that, there is a lot of sacred ceremony, ritual, and touch points that you can do in your life to be able to honor where you are, what you're releasing and letting go of, and what you're calling in next.
Simply said, yes. It doesn't have to be painful. In fact, sometimes it's a fun journey all the way through. I mean, the dark night of the soul does happen at least once in our lifetime if we allow it. But that just means that you're able to feel the breath of all the feelings and emotions that we're able to feel, which means manifestations are clearer, the path is clearer, the compassion is clearer, the empathy is clearer, and all the ways that we could be good humans and stewards on this planet. So it's okay. It's all good.
Well, and we look back and we know that we did what we were supposed to do and we're where we're supposed to be. Like, it's okay that everything fell apart and we created something completely new because that's just part of growth. That's part of just getting older. And, we have to do that many times along our lifetime. And why shouldn't we also have a spiritual existence that believes in magic and understands that there is shadow and light, good and evil, and that we are not just a physical being, but a spiritual one?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
if this feels safe or a place that you feel held or that you want to continue with, you want to learn more about, tell us below, comment, subscribe, share with a friend who you think might be going through a spiritual awakening but isn't quite sure. And yeah, let us know if there's more you'd like us to talk about this season on Peace Out Witches.
Peace out, witches.